Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind ThatKaitoDan, and welcome to my review for RWBY Volume 4 Chapter 10, Kuroyuri. Before we begin, be sure to know that this video will contain spoilers for the episode as well as the show as a whole, so please watch with caution. And quickly, I want to give a shout out to Hawthorne on Twitter who drew the first bit of fan art I've ever had, draw me as a Lego man. Thank you so much, man. That is awesome to see, and I'm just completely touched. You are too kind for doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Looks like we're in the home stretch now for the volume, after the recent World of Remnant, and RWBY has now reached the 50th main episode landmark, so congratulations to Rooster Teeth and the RWBY crew there. After the previous episode had all 4 of Team RWBY's girls see either growth or challenges arise in their stories, things are definitely starting to set up for a lot of drama to close out the volume. As we head into the finish line though, was Volume 4 able to act on the buzz from last time out? Or did Kuroyuri bring trouble for not just the characters, but for the episode itself? Let's find out. We actually don't start in Kuroyuri, but instead we're at Asuka's farm, with the farm boy bracing it seems for leaving. Looks like Asuka finally convinced the lad that in the end, leaving is the best thing to do right now. Though I do like that Asuka does have some hesitancy, even as he's already on his way out. Shame we didn't see any goodbye bit with his aunt, but alas, it is nice at least to see that Asuka is finally hitting the road. He's still unsure about all of this, mind you, and still finding recent things a bit crazy, but unlike before where he was fighting the role that he'll be playing in the world, he does feel a bit warmer to the idea that this is the right move. For what exactly, he doesn't know just yet, which is why he's also terrified at what lies ahead. But it's progress for the boy, and aided with Asuka sounding like he understands Asuka's conflicting emotions, which does help this odd situation the two are in come off as a bit more comforting. And he'll likely act as a strong mentor figure to Asuka as the volume goes on and beyond. A storm breaks out though, which leads into some awesome rain particle effects for the next scene, the farm boy making it to a nearby train station. I imagine heading towards Haven if the last discussion between these two is anything to go on. But Asuka has issues getting a ticket. Guess being the compost king doesn't come with a king's wealth, and I doubt Asuka can scrounge up any of his funds from inside Asuka's head. So this is a bit of a pickle, at least until the former headmaster warns Asuka to be on his guard, and rightly so, cause Hazel has appeared. Well, that's a surprise. No, I'm glad to see the big guy again after his debut way back in the volume's opener. It also let me finally introduce his voice actor, since this episode actually has credits for him, and it's definitely an interesting talent too. Hazel is played by William Orendorff, an actor in several shorts, but he is also the voice behind the grim sound effects. That's pretty cool to see, and his voice suits Hazel perfectly, so I'm all for hearing more of this guy outside the many beasties of Remnant. But yeah, suddenly Hazel out of nowhere, looking as intimidating to Asuka as you'd expect for a man of his size. But instead of pounding Asuka into the pavement, he actually smashes a ticket out for him, passing by with saying that he shouldn't let small obstacles like this get in his way. Fascinating words of wisdom for a guy on the bad side. I get the vibe that he's a hard-driven but strong man, not just with his fists, but also with his words. Someone who acts on his goals no matter the roadblock, making him come across as a bit more interesting than just being the hulking bruiser of Salem's Lot. But I gotta ask, why is he here? His mission from Salem was to join a meeting with the White Fang leader Sierra Khan, which was set up by Adam. But if the masked boy is set for Menagerie, and Asuka is apparently in Anima, why is Hazel here? Is the meeting in Anima? Has the meeting already concluded? Could he now be assisting Watts over in Haven? Or maybe going on the hunt for the Spring Maiden? There's also the question about Asuka's comments. The voice in Asuka's head noting that he's familiar with Hazel, and he's not the kind of person to take lightly. From this, we could possibly assume that Asuka does have history with not just Salem, but perhaps the rest of her cohorts as well, which then leads into asking just how long has he been fighting them as well. Also, how does he know about Hazel, but Crow, his confidant, didn't know about Tyrion? I doubt he'd mention Salem to him, but not mention the others, so that could hint that Tyrion was perhaps a recent addition that Asuka never met. Our next destination though is the titular Kuroyuri, another massively ruined village. Just seeing the panning shots over the wreckage alongside that warped, screeching music piece in the background definitely sunk in how brutal the scene looked and the severity of the terror that's possible outside of the kingdoms. Jean and Ruby, with Crow in tow, are also stunned at the sight before them, making their hopes for finding any medicine for Crow seem all the more dire. The performances from Lindsay and Miles spot on too, by the way, with adding into this depressing situation that they're in. It also starts to sink in why Ren was adamant about not coming to Kuroyuri. Ruby's queries on the topic pointing towards John starting to connect the dots that this place was Ren's home. Proven for sure as we then go back to the more peaceful days of Kuroyuri back in time to see a tiny little Lai Ren. And can I just say, Ren looks freaking adorable as a kid. Great work by the crewbie for this design, and that goes for the Sprout's voice talent too. Young Ren is voiced by Afia Yu, who in the past has played the likes of Ryo Nakamura from Assassination Classroom, Natsumi Kuzuryu in the Despair arc anime of Danganronpa 3, and she's also played Whitey from Kerberfer's online animated series Tome, Terrain of Magical Expertise. We were also introduced to a new RWBY parent, Ren's mother, An, voiced by Dawn M. Bennett, who has previously voiced Ritsuka Tachibana in Dance with Devils, Frosh from the Fairy Tail series, and Sash Lilac from the Freedom Planet games. An's just as charming as her son is, with how they interact with each other, that's pretty much clear. Both with a pleasant and sweet feel to them, yet with some sass to go along with it. But it's a very natural looking mother and son bond. As for Ren's father, well, he's coming home soon, and An wants Ren to go buy him a welcome back present. So off he goes into the market, letting us also have a better look, beautiful and somber, with a warm, friendly atmosphere to it all. Even down to the market folk, with Ren unable to purchase a weapon or some sake, but the sellers are at least friendly with the scamp. Ren next buys some tasty looking food, including some kitty bread, which I now badly want. But before that, Ren catches on to someone getting bullied. And wouldn't you know it, it's Nora Valkyrie herself, who in this flashback is voiced by KRISTEN McGuire, the voice behind roles such as Chiyo Kurihara from Prison School, Hanabi Kawai from Keijo, and Hinano Kurahashi from Assassination Classroom. And wow, what a 180 from the Nora that we know of today, looking as rough as heck, scared of these random bullies, and apparently so desperate for food that she'd pinch it from a bakery or from the rubbish, and she'll bite someone just to keep it. I think it's safe to say at this point, Nora could definitely be an orphan and on her own. It's also noted that she doesn't wear clothes common for this place, so where does Nora come from? Since her clothes don't look all that Asian inspired, she could be from a family that came from outside of anime, or at least came from a part of anime that's got a different theme to them. Sadly, we don't get too much of an insight on Nora's past, and while Ren looks like he wants to help, once his presence is revealed, he starts to panic and opts for running away from the problem, running face first into his father, Hanzo? Okay, obvious joke is obvious, but he does look like Overwatch's native archer. No, this is Lee Ren, voiced by Kaji Tang, notable for voicing the likes of Owain from Fire Emblem Awakening, Sumugu Kinagase from Kill la Kill, and Archer from the Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works TV series. Before we can go Ryuga Wakiteki Woku out on the bullies, Nora breaks free and the bullies soon do the same, letting the adult pass on some words of wisdom to his son, that sometimes the worst action is no action at all. It's wise words, and for a kid who looks to be a tad short on confidence, it could mean a lot, especially given how we do know in the future, Ren handles a lot of situations with a better mind for the situation at hand. For now though, Lee has to speak with the mayor, so it's time for Ren to go home. A chance for us to go forward in time now to check in on Ruby and John's hunt for medicine, though sadly there's still no luck there. Crow is still holding on, but it's still an ugly situation they're in right now, especially with Grim not far off by the sounds of it. Bad for them, and possibly bad for Ren and Nora too, Jean's still wondering if they're okay. The mention of John's Juniper buddies then starts to weigh in on Ruby, leading into something that I'm quite glad to see. RWBY's starting to get that her actions might have negative effects sometimes. Shown here with thinking that she's dragged the others into something they didn't want to be a part of. The fight with Tyrion highlighted for me and many others that RWBY can be prone for making decisions whilst not thinking about the consequences and who it may affect. Though thankfully, Jean starts to clear the air on this issue. She didn't force the trio to come with her. They wanted to come, especially because of what's happened to them in the past and how RWBY has reacted to the events in Beacon. Jean points out that while Ren, Nora and himself did lose Pyrrha, so did RWBY as well, not to mention Penny, her team, and even Yang to some degree. Yet here she is right now in the thick of it, willing herself forward. She's not sitting on her hands back home, but instead she's out here still trying to make a difference, despite all she's lost and all she could still lose. That's why she's not alone on this journey. She's become a simple spark of hope and inspiration for her friends that they should follow in her footsteps, to take what they've lost and still look to do good, to make things right. I love this scene so much, and as I've said in the past, I really love the relationship between these two. Their quirks and their faults bounce off each other very nicely, and they've made for some fun and charming interactions in the past. Now here we see Jean be there for RWBY, as opposed to when she was there for him way back in Volume 1. You can look at this romantically or not, but either way, these two do make a great pair, and I'm glad that we got not just RWBY starting to wise up on a nagging issue regarding her brash behaviour at points, but also more of Jean's insightful kindness starting to shine through. It's a sweet moment that then leads into something less positive. Back in the flashback, little Ren wakes up to screams, and his mother saying that they need to leave right now. Lee limps in, clearly having been in a scuffle, and urges not an exit to the nearby safe house, but the full-on abandonment of Kuroyuri. This information on top of everything going on outside starts to scare poor Ren, and though Aunt tries her best to calm her son down, the house caves in, resulting in her death. Oh boy. Thankfully, Ren is okay, waking up later in his father's arms, though he's looking very rough, bleeding from the head and panting hard trying to get away from the chaos alongside Ren and the rest of the village, only to collapse in the middle of the bedlam. Lee is clearly in bad shape, and he knows what he has to do, telling Ren that he has to go it alone now. Lee can't go on, and it's best for his son to get out while he can, even if he doesn't want to. It's here that we start to see the first signs of whatever is causing all this mayhem. And holy hell does that thing look goddamn freaky. It's masked in the smoke so we can't see it completely, but look at it! It's like a skeleton or a mangled corpse on top of some kind of horse, and both pairs of red eyes beaming through the smoke definitely adds in some fear effect. This is bad, really bad, and Lee acts quick, giving his son one last ounce of wisdom to carry alongside a dagger, obviously the origin of Ren's later weapon, Stormflower. Ren must be brave now, especially now that he'll be on his own. He must be ready to take action when needed to survive. But of course he must also never forget that his mother and father loves him. Right in the feels with that line. Then boom! In comes the Grim again, though once more we can't see it fully save for its leg, and the shadow of its freaky looking rider covered in arrows. Lee, injured or not, arms up with his arrows that he's still got left, and holds ground as Ren runs off, willing to sacrifice himself as Ren makes it for the nearby bridge. As the youngster starts to scope the area, things are definitely looking worse. Nevermore now roaming the skies above, with one getting close to not just him, but also a frightened Nora underneath a house. To make matters even more dire, the hidden Grim is on the prowl again, confirming for the poor lad the fate of his father. That heartbreaking realization finally lets the tears flow, until suddenly a wave of aura and a grey shade flows over Ren, and he instantly composes his emotions. With a burst of bravery, he heads on over to Nora, and the two kids share a hug that brings out another wave of Ren's aura, this time covering over the pair of them. the grey shade coating them, somehow keeping the nearby Nevermore from discovering them. Ladies and gents, I believe we have finally just seen what Ren's semblance is. Given how quick Ren went from bawling his eyes out to a calmer state, as well as the Grimm not sensing their negative energy of fear, this semblance could be some kind of cloaking defense mechanism powered by calm, tranquil emotions. What an awesome and very fitting ability for someone who's so often the most level-headed, emotionally balanced member of the bunch. Not to mention it can work on others as well, since Tunch and Ren also kept Nora safe. The pair aren't out of the woods yet though, cause in comes that mystery Grimm again, and we get a better but still hidden look at its unique pair of legs, including the horse side that likely leaves the notable print in the ground that we've seen before. And not only that, but what looks like a long, drooping, clawish arm dragging and clicking across the floor. If the fans are right on their research, it looks like this beast is called a Nuk-Lavi from the Norse mythology. Wicked to see a Grimm inspired by a beast ripped right out of Nora's neck of the woods. Before I show you what the Nuk-Lavi looks like though, I will warn you that it is pretty demonic and grotesque. So jump to this time in the video if you are a bit squeamish, or if you just want to avoid seeing it until its true reveal as a Grimm later on. Ready? Voila! Ain't he a cutie? Talk about a nightmarish creature. Can only imagine what it will look like as a Grimm. The good news though is that it doesn't catch Nora and Ren, who even though he admits he is still scared, he goes out and picks up a familiar object. It's the wooden hammer from Ren's shopping venture, which he then gives to Nora so they can protect each other now. Thus the start of this awesome double act in RWBY, all the while a soft bit of the song Boob debuts and plays in the background. Because, you know, the RWBY crew really decided to squeeze all the emotion out in this scene. The feels are definitely strong here. And now we're back in present day, and with the current aged Ren and Nora up in the mountains, still trying to find help or find the capital. Yet still glad to be together. Look at that smile. You know, even with how rough this whole ordeal is, he's just glad that he's got Nora with him. The two do find something though, a cave that could lead to the peak of the mountains, though something else catches their eye after Ren gets pancaked by a banner. A Shi'an banner, despite that village being weeks away from here. The pair head inside to discover that it's covered in blood, broken wood, and weapons, including a Mjolnir-like hammer, which could either be an Easter egg or some kind of hint towards something related to Nora. Though, obviously most importantly, there's one of Lee Ren's arrows. If it wasn't clear already, a familiar mark confirms it. This is the home of that mystery Grimm, which is now making its way to Kuroyuri, and more importantly, making its way towards RWBY, Jean and Crow. The episode ending here as the two of Ren and Nora brace for a reunion with their past, amid one ungodly hellish scream. Well, that sure was an emotional watch, probably one of the most emotional of the entire show. I mean, I think we all knew that if we did have a flashback of either Ren or Nora's past, it would be sad given their lack of a family in current events. But this was just so heartbreaking, and yet I loved it. The RWBY took an expected emotional roller coaster and still made it hit all the right marks in terms of a truly gut-wrenching period for the two, as well as the sincere beginnings of one of the most entertaining duos in the show, and the emotion and mystery not being limited to just the past events. While you could say there wasn't too much in the way of progress for an episode this late in the volume, a long overdue look back on Ren and Nora definitely makes up for it, especially with a huge confrontation with their past coming soon, making me really want Ren and Nora to confront their fears now that I know what they've faced and what they've lost. Ren's parents, while getting a short bit of time with us, were definitely wonderful and sweet, not to mention pretty awesome too. You can see the elements that would end up shaping the Ren that we know today. Kind-hearted and supportive like Anne, but sharp, brave and strong like his father. With the long-awaited semblance revealed tied to Ren's calmness also being a neat element to Ren's personality. The origin of Ren and Nora's relationships was also just as fulfilling to watch. Now I feel even more wise on why these two are so tied to the hip. They're an inseparable duo who had to grow together to survive and protect each other, let alone just themselves. and even the simple gesture of Ren being the one to give Nora the means to defend herself and inspire her iconic weapon, it just really nailed the emotion. And it all topped up with one hell of a well-directed tease for the new Grimm. Regardless of what it ends up being, the RWBY crew introduced this beast with some of the best air of tension and suspense that I have seen for a new creature. Now we know why it's connected to Ren and Nora, I fully expect to see the two rejoin Ruby and Jean and face their past, which is why I kinda think Ren and Nora will make it out of this volume okay, because now that I saw what the two went through thanks to this beast, I want to see them get revenge and gain a victory over their nightmare, coming out of it stronger in the end and having a landmark moment that could inspire them moving forward. And speaking of Jean and Ruby, as said before, I love the scene that they shared. If Ruby can continue to look deeper into her actions, it'll be all for the better, especially if she's supposed to inspire many others to keep up the hope. She's carrying a lot on her shoulders, and seeing her buckle and doubt herself sometimes if she's making good calls or not or anything of the like will only make the progress that she does make feel even more rewarding. And finally, I'm glad to see that Ozpin and Oscar's story point is finally branching out of the farm, as I want to see how the poor boy can handle this wider world and adventure that he's been thrusted into, especially if he keeps meeting interesting people like Hazel, who is also a welcome sight, accompanying some hints of the past that he has with Ozpin, who is starting to mold into the Guardian role well that we'll likely see him play for the next while. If I had only one issue, it would be that some of the running animations did look a little bit distracting at points, and this did kinda take me out of the moment slightly, but it isn't that strong of a bump in the road to ruin a great episode. From its visuals and sound design to its emotion and directing, full marks for me. As for the voice acting praise of the episode, this was once more a close call. Miles and Lindsay were stellar for their notable piece, and all the new talent were excellent even with their limited time. But in the end, I'm gonna give it to Afia Yu as young Ren. Yeah, there were points where an accent debate could begin, but overall, I think she did a grand job portraying the young boy over a wide array of emotions, not to mention doing so for a younger version of a key notable fan favourite character. Always a challenge that, and I reckon she deserves some praise for it. And that's it, another review down, and even now I'm still blown away by this episode. Hands down, it's the episode that fans of Ren and Nora definitely deserve, and then some, setting up one hell of a climax for the volume. But that's my opinion, and once more, it's time to remind you to share yours in the comments down below. Do you feel the same way I do about this emotionally packed episode, or do you disagree? While you let me know, like and fave the video if you wish, and make sure you click on the subscribe and bell buttons to get every new video as they come out. Go ahead too and follow me on Twitter at ThatKaitoDan so you can get updates on any kind of future videos, anything to do with RWBY, and more. Until next time though, have a good day or good night, and peace out.